Good afternoon. Today is Sunday, June 24th, 2018. I'm your host, Joseph, and you're watching the CryptoSonar Show. Let's get right to it. Let's get to the markets. Okay, so it has been a bloodbath. There is blood in the streets, and of course, everyone says from way back into the 1930s and earlier, when there's blood in the streets, that's the time to buy. But with a caveat, check out the disclaimer at the beginning and the end of this video for I am not a financial advisor. This is strictly for education. So let's take a look at it. Right now, we are currently at a market cap of $251 billion. That is way down. It has been going down quite a bit. And as we look at the top 10 coins, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple, Bitcoin Cash, EOS, Litecoin, Stellar, Cardano, Tron, and IOTA, it has done nothing but the same thing. So when we take a look at Bitcoin, I did a little TA on this, and I was watching some other videos and looking at some other folks on the internet and what they're saying is happening, etc. And quite frankly, nobody knows. There was a bet that Doug Polk Crypto lost a $10,000 bet, to Tone Vase on the fact of whether Bitcoin would dip below 6,000 or not. Doug Polk offered a double or nothing bet on 3,000, and Tone Vase declined on that offer. But what's interesting about this is I took a look at TA in terms of a longer term, and here we have the daily chart on Bitcoin, and we're currently at 6120. It did dip down to the 5750. Yeah, 5750 was the low on Bitcoin, and that's not a good thing, right? So we take a look, and we took a look at the all-time highs, which we hit the all-time highs, as everyone knows, right around mid-December, a couple days after mid-December, and I drew a line. And that line, if you look at from what happened in that line all the way through May, through June, through this week, it's a convergence. And convergence, everyone is talking about finding support levels. And support levels are difficult to find. I saw some charts where there was nothing but white below, or in my case, black below, because I have a dark colored screen, which I think it's easier to read on my eyes. But it's something that when we look at everything that's going on in the marketplace, where is that support level at? And I had difficulty finding it as well. Best guess at this point is right around that 6,000 range, that 5,900 range, which we dipped down to yesterday and today, and there's not a lot below that. So if it goes below that, then there's pretty much nothing until you might be looking at the $3,500 range or so. I don't think it's going to go that low. I think that a lot of folks are going to get back into this, looking at the opportunities with a lot of good news coming out lately, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. So Bitcoin, again, you can see where that's going. I'll talk about Ethereum a little bit later. I am long on Ethereum, and I'll go into that a little bit. But what I want to take a look at is the coin360.io, and as we can see, just about everything is in the red for today over the last 24 hours, and we have Bitcoin down 0.37%, Ethereum down 4.52%. Again, this is coin360.io. If you look at that, it'll just give you a sentiment of the market, and as we're still seeing, we are in a sea of red. So everybody has pretty much been negative across the whole board, and of course, if we look at the change over the last 24 hours, positives, a whole bunch of coins that you never heard of. Monero up 4%. Loom up 2.42%. Ontology up 1.14%. I'm a little bit long on a couple of those as well. And if we look at the worst over the last 24 hours, DigixDAO down 12.65%, VeChain, a popular one, down 11.32%, and then Zilliqa down 10.56%, Icon, ICX down 10.39%, WANChain down 9.84%, and Gas down 9.77%. So we have a lot going on in terms of that going. Bitcoin currently right now is again, the BTC dominance has been steadily going up. We are currently at 41.9% on the BTC dominance. So that's something, if you were to take a look at that from a chart standpoint, the BTC dominance has been going down, but we do have a rise in the dominance going from May 2nd at 36.27, and we're currently at 41.9%. So since May, that Bitcoin dominance has been going back up, where historically it's been going down, which means less interest in alternative coins, or altcoins as they're known. So let's take a look at, I want to, not everything is bad news. And there was something that I saw on the other day, and this was CNBC Brian Kelly, and this was something that came on CNBC, and I'm just going to play it for you, and hopefully you can hear it.
Should we continue to cover Bitcoin? And the answer is sadly no. So today we're having a funeral for Bitcoin. It was fun while it lasted, so many memories, so many friends. There was Tom Lee and his calls.
In case you haven't figured it out, this is a bit of a spoof.
Democrats and his calls for 40.
Okay. So, then we fast forward a little bit.
Bitcoin can't go lower. This is a bear market, and in bear markets, we don't know where they end. There's usually some kind of big crescendo to that. But this is by no means the funeral for Bitcoin.
There you go. So, basically what Brian Kelly is saying is Bitcoin isn't dead yet. I tend to agree it's not dead. However, as far as on the year for 2018, we are at an all-time low, and I can't think of anything better to demonstrate that than a song by WOTE, which is Walk Off the Earth. These folks are fantastic. They were known for five folks on the guitar. The guy on the right here is Bearded Guy, and let's hear what Sarah has to say about it.
I've been trying to fix my pride, but that shit's broken. That shit's broken. Lie, try to hide, now you know it. That I'm at an all-time low.
When you're feeling down, turn on this song, folks.
Time.
You get the point. All right, so do I think we're at an all-time low? Well, all-time low for anybody that got in past, say, November 2017. This is the low on the year that we are currently at. So it is an all-time low in terms of folks that got in, because the volumes, as you can see, compared to 16, back earlier at the end of last year, all the way up through now, we've got a lot of volume. So a lot of people have jumped in since we hit this last level of Bitcoin support. So I think we're at an all-time low for right now. I don't think that we're going to go back down below the $5,000 level. I would be very surprised if we do. However, I could be 100% wrong. So only use money that you are willing to lose. Okay. All right. So the next thing we're going to talk about is, since we went over an all-time low and Brian Kelly on CNBC, is some good news. And some good news, talking right into Brian Kelly and his opinion that Bitcoin is not dead, is Ethereum has basically been told by the SEC that they are not a security. And here's why it matters for other coin offerings, is putting aside the fundraising that accompanied the creation of Ether. Based on my understanding of the present state of Ether, the Ethereum network and its decentralized structure, current offers and sales of Ether are not securities transactions. William Hinman, director of the Securities and Exchange Commission's Division of Corporate Finance, said in a speech this week on Yahoo. So that's some good news for those that hold Ethereum. I am one of those folks that hold Ethereum. And he basically used wording from a 1949 Supreme Court ruling called the Howey test, which defines New York transactions as investment contracts if a person invests his money in a common enterprise and is led to expect profits solely from the efforts of the promoter or a third party. So he basically said Ethereum fails the Howey test. And of course, if that's the precedent that's been set, at least in the United States, that is good, because a lot of other countries follow what happens over here. So that's definitely some good news on Ethereum. And thank you to CNBC for their little spoof on the funeral of Bitcoin, and the further story by Brian Kelly, which actually was some good news on the week as well. Next thing we're going to talk about is we're going to go into a little bit on EOS. And EOS had their blockchain, and I did a video last week on what was going on with them. And I'm going to take this down to a 1-hour chart and take a look at what's been happening with them. As you can see, we've had pretty good drop off the cliff here, along with everything else, and they've had a little bit of rise right back up. But the news on them is something that really is interesting, because when we talked about the freeze and their ability to do that, not long after that video that I got hammered on by a couple of folks last weekend, we had some other news, and the EOS block producers reportedly ordered ordered to freeze 27 accounts with reasoning to follow. So basically what has happened is, and there's folks coming out here basically saying, Charlie Shrem basically says no words. The authorities and EOS just instructed the block producers to censor transactions from 27 accounts with no reasons given. The logic and reasoning for this order will be posted at a later date. They then went into listing the addresses. This is something that, when you have one arbiter, an emergency arbiter that is appointed, that has the sole decision-making ability to take this action, to then order the block producers to freeze transactions, that is the ideal meaning of centralized. This is a centralized offering. EOS is centralized. It is not decentralized. There are a lot of puppets pulling the strings on this. I don't happen to own any EOS. I think it's too young of a technology with their mainnet just coming out after having the largest ICO in 2017 of over $4 billion. And it seems like they've had nothing but problems since they released their mainnet back on June 2nd, I believe it was, right around there, June 1st, June 2nd. So this is something that is worrying as far as the folks that might hold that, or that people that think that their coins that their tokens might be safe on EOS, or the applications that they build on EOS might be safe. When you have all these block producers that can vote, when you have all these arbitration agents that can basically be an emergency, set out an emergency protection order, and then there's no really explanation given, that's something that is at least worrisome to me. We'll see what they say later on in the week, but it's definitely, it looks like it has not necessarily affected what's happened with EOS, at least since this morning. If we take a look at this morning, say around 1 o'clock in the morning to where we're at right now, about 10.9% off the high, right around 13.81%. So it's having itself a good little rebound here. And maybe it's because a lot of people perceive that to be good news, that they can stop fraudulent transactions from occurring on their mainnet, which some of the other coin offerings out there cannot unless they do a hard fork. So this is something that they are doing to avoid a hard fork. Time will tell with people and what their sentiment is towards the coin on whether that is going to be successful for them or not. Some more good news, some great news when it comes over into Mt. Gox. Now, Mt. Gox was a crypto exchange that got hacked, and basically the Mt. Gox crypto exchange begins civil rehabilitation proceedings, ends Bitcoin sell-offs. Well, I don't necessarily think that that's an absolutely true statement that it ends the sell-offs, because the PDF that I reviewed after going through a few articles on this says something a little bit different, but it does basically say that their bankruptcy proceedings have now been stayed. The court approves Mt. Gox civil rehab, mostly good news. Trustee won't sell more BTC, although he has the right to. Creditors receive BTC instead of JPY in early to mid 2019. So we're looking at about a year from now. Everyone must refile claims by October. So they've frozen the claims process, and they're going to reopen that back up for people to refile claims. Bad news, some creditors will sell BTC, so that will hang over the market next year. So that's something that we'll need to take a look at when that happens. But one of the things they did was they released the order. They put out the petition of what's going to happen, and it's something that it gave some deadlines of what's going to happen. Deadline for filing proof of rehab claims, October 22nd. Deadline for inventory of assets and balance sheets, October 27th. Period to examine proofs, January 31st through February 7th. And the deadline for proposed rehab plan by February 14th. And then you can go to mountgox.com to read more on that. Some of the questions that they had that were on there is that what's going to happen? Can they still sell BTC coins? Yes, they can. The same person that was the trustee is now the rehabilitation trustee, or rehabilitation transferee per se. So that's something that could be perceived as good news. Of course, when looking at this, have they been dumping BTC on the market? When do we find out about it? Is that a reason for the market to move down? There's a lot of folks out there that think it does, but as long as things like this are held over the head of Bitcoin, we're not going to get that mass entrance of investment into it while these things are still holding on. So possibly by mid next year, roughly a year from now, hopefully we'll have that straightened out, and we can we can basically take a look at getting rid of that particular issue. All right, so next thing I want to do is I want to talk about Ethereum, but before I do that, or yeah, I will. So what I want to take a look at is I want to go over to the daily chart on Ethereum, and I want to take a look at where we were on December 31st. And if you look at December 31st, right around here, and this is very, somewhat where we're at. We've had a loss up to today of 455. Let me go back up here. Boom, boom, right about there, of 37.23%. So Ethereum has lost 37.23% since January 1st of this year. Remember that number, 37.23. If we take a look at Bitcoin and we go into Bitcoin and we take a look at Bitcoin in terms of where they were on the 31st of January, here we go, right about here. Here we go. And where they're at today, 61.39, right about, oops, where are we at here? Right about there, 55.35%. So that is the difference, 55 minus 37, so 47, 57, you're about 17, 18% better in Ethereum year to date as far as coming down from where it started the beginning of the year at compared to Bitcoin. Does that mean strength for Ethereum? Ethereum not being considered a security is certainly good news for the markets as well. It's certainly good news for holders of Ethereum like myself, and I do believe in the technology. I believe in the white paper. I believe in once they go to Casper and proof of work instead of proof of stake instead of proof of work, and they implement that it's going to be a good thing for Ethereum and those that hold it down the road. Just a guess, I could be 100% wrong, and again, it could all go down to zero tomorrow. We'll see. So I think that's some good news for Ethereum overall. So again, we're looking in a little bit of a, if I just take a quick look at the 5-minute side, we've had some good things happen earlier today, and we've bounced up about 5.81% on Bitcoin on the low, off the lows off today, and Ethereum has bounced up about 7.83% off the lows for today. So we've got a little bit of stability here. It is Sunday evening, so that's something that typically happens around this time. We do see people jumping back into the market a little bit. We see some volume increases over here. We see some volume increases on Bitcoin as well. So hopefully that will bode well for things this coming week. We'll see what happens tomorrow. But again, I think that when we take a look at Bitcoin and take a look at what could possibly happen, if this convergence happens, a lot of people say, well, I'm more bearish. Will we get a bounce on this cross? And this cross is predicting roughly July 3rd, July 4th, July 5th, right around that area. That first, second week of July is going to be pivotal for direction-wise which way we are going to go. We could be in a capitulation phase right now. It could bounce and it could continue bouncing and going back up. There really is no real test of this market anywhere below until we get back down to the 5,100 levels, and then from there, 37, 3,800. So that's about it for today. If you like the content that we offer today, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification on the right-hand side of the video, and go ahead and click on it. You'll be notified when we upload a video. That's it for today. I'm your host, Joseph. I hope you've enjoyed the news this week, this Sunday evening, June 24th, 2018. This is the CryptoSonar Show. We'll see you next time. Have a great day. Keep the faith, and let's keep crypto growing. Bye now.